The stale air of the discount grocery store clung to Amelia like the ghost of a forgotten dream. Years had passed since the day her world shattered, but the phantom scent of lilies and betrayal still pricked at her memory. Now, instead of satin and lace, her uniform was a threadbare t-shirt and jeans, stretched taut over a frame that had birthed 5 miracles. Quintuplets. The word still felt surreal, a whimsical, terrifying pronouncement from a life that had spiraled so far from the gilded cage she once knew. Her fingers, calloused from countless diaper changes and scrubbing floors, tightened around the handle of the overflowing shopping cart. In it, nestled amongst bulk-sized cereal and economy-brand diapers, were 5 little faces, a kaleidoscope of bright, curious eyes. Lily, with her fiery red hair and mischievous grin. Noah, the quiet observer, always with a book. Twins, Daisy and Dahlia, inseparable and prone to impromptu song. And little Finn, the ever-hungry, ever-smiling youngest. They were her universe, her anchors in a storm of single parenthood and financial strain. Today, the storm had a name, Ethan Vance. He stood by the organic produce, a sleek, tailored wolf in a flock of budget-conscious sheep. Ethan Vance, the man who had promised her forever, then left her standing alone at the altar, a news headline before she was even a wife. He looked exactly as she remembered, perhaps even more so. The sharp lines of his jaw, the dark, intense eyes that once held so much promise, now narrowed in what looked like disbelief. His expensive suit seemed to hum with the energy of a world she'd been violently ejected from. A wave of nausea, cold and sharp, washed over Amelia. It wasn't just the shock of seeing him. It was the raw, unadulterated humiliation that clawed at her throat. All the whispers, the pitying glances, the poor Amelia murmurs that had defined her existence for so long, threatened to overwhelm her. She wanted to turn, to flee, to somehow disappear into the towering aisles of canned goods. But 5 small voices, each demanding in their own way, tethered her to the spot. "Mommy, can we have the sparkly yogurt?" Lily's voice, a sweet, high-pitched demand, broke the tense silence. Ethan's gaze, which had been locked on Amelia, shifted. His eyes, once so cold, widened fractionally as they swept over the 5 children, then back to her face. A flicker of something unreadable, confusion, recognition, crossed his features. Amelia gripped the cart, her knuckles white. She could feel the blood draining from her face, replaced by a sudden, intense heat of mortification. This was it, the moment she had dreaded, the collision of her 2 irreconcilable lives. "Amelia?" His voice, a low rumble that once sent shivers down her spine, now sounded foreign, almost hesitant. He took a tentative step towards her, and Amelia instinctively pulled the cart forward, creating a barrier between them. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a desperate drum against the silence of the aisle. The children, sensing the shift in atmosphere, grew quiet, their innocent eyes darting between their mother and the imposing stranger. This wasn't just a chance encounter. It was the past, resurrected and demanding an explanation, an apology, or perhaps something far more terrifying. She braced herself, a warrior in a grocery store, ready to defend her hard-won peace. Ethan's tailored suit felt suddenly restrictive, the crisp collar choking him as he stared at Amelia. Not the Amelia he remembered, the radiant woman in white, but a specter of her, aged by worry, yet fiercely beautiful in her resilience. And the children, 5 of them. His gaze darted from one small face to another, a jumble of blonde, brown, and fiery red hair, then back to Amelia's weary eyes. The supermarket's fluorescent lights hummed, casting a stark glow on the impossible scene. "Amelia," he repeated, his voice barely a whisper, the name feeling foreign on his tongue after 7 years of silence. Are they yours?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications, the most obvious of which being, "Are they mine?" He felt a jolt of something akin to panic, a dizzying recognition that his meticulously constructed world of power and control was about to shatter. Amelia's chin lifted, a defiant tilt that he remembered from their arguments, from before the betrayal. "Of course, they're mine, Ethan. Who else would they be?" Her voice was low, laced with a bitterness that made his stomach clench. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have groceries to finish." She tried to maneuver the cart past him, but he instinctively moved, blocking her path. Wait, Amelia. Please. We need to talk. He reached out, his hand hovering uncertainly, but she flinched, pulling back as if burned. The movement was a stark reminder of the chasm between them. Talk? She scoffed, a humorless laugh escaping her lips. About what, Ethan? About how you left me at the altar, disappeared, and then resurfaced 7 years later expecting what, exactly? A grateful hug? I have 5 children to feed, Ethan. I don't have time for your sudden crisis of conscience. Her eyes, once so full of love for him, now held a cold, unwavering contempt that cut him deeper than any accusation. He swallowed hard, the weight of his past actions pressing down on him. I know I messed up, Amelia. More than messed up. But I never forgot you. He gestured vaguely at the children. And them. I had no idea. His voice trailed off, the shock still warring with a burgeoning sense of responsibility he hadn't known he could feel. One of the twins, Dahlia, tugged on Amelia's shirt. Mommy, who is he? She whispered, her innocent query echoing loudly in the tense silence. Amelia glanced down at her daughter, her expression softening infinitesimally, then hardened again as she met Ethan's gaze. He's nobody important, sweetie. Just someone who used to know Mommy a long time ago. The dismissal was a blunt force, designed to wound, and it hit its mark. Amelia, please, Ethan pleaded, his voice gaining urgency. He couldn't leave it like this. He couldn't just walk away again, not when he was faced with the living consequences of his monumental mistake. He looked at Lily, then Noah, then the twins, and finally little Finn, who was gnawing on a teething biscuit, oblivious. They were tiny, tangible pieces of a life he had forfeited. He remembered the pain, the reason he had run all those years ago, but seeing her now, seeing them, dwarfed all his previous suffering. Just a few minutes. Let me explain. Let me help. Help. Amelia's laugh was sharp, brittle. You think I need your help, Ethan? After everything. Her voice rose slightly, drawing the attention of a passing shopper. The humiliation was a bitter taste in her mouth. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and fiercely protective. My help is standing right here, she said, gesturing to her children, her eyes blazing. Now move. The standoff was palpable, a silent war of wills in the bright, mundane aisle. Ethan saw the unwavering strength in her eyes, the fierce love for her children, and a bitter regret settled deep in his chest. He had destroyed something precious, and now, years later, the full, unexpected scope of his destruction was standing right in front of him, demanding to be acknowledged. He had to try, even if she hated him for it. He had to try. The supermarket encounter had been a raw, jarring reunion, leaving Amelia shaken and Ethan reeling. Days later, a large, discreetly delivered envelope arrived at Amelia's small apartment. Inside, a formal letter from Ethan's legal team, acknowledging the children and requesting a meeting to discuss their future, along with a significant sum of money deposited into a newly opened trust fund for the Quintuplets. It was a cold, calculated move, yet it offered a lifeline Amelia desperately needed. She met him in a neutral, sterile law office, not a grand restaurant or a lavish estate. The air conditioning hummed, a stark contrast to the emotional heat that still simmered between them. Ethan, stripped of his initial shock, was composed, almost clinical. He laid out a proposal, a generous monthly allowance, a larger, more suitable home for her and the children, and a commitment to be a part of their lives, if she would allow it. Why now, Ethan? Amelia asked, her voice flat, devoid of the anger that had fueled her in the grocery store. 7 years. You had 7 years to care, to even wonder. Why only when you see them with your own eyes? He leaned forward, his composure cracking slightly. Because I was a coward, Amelia. I was young, terrified of the responsibility, and my family, they pressured me. They told me you were after my money, that a public wedding would ruin my reputation. I let them convince me to run. It was the biggest mistake of my life. His eyes, for the first time, held genuine remorse, not just shock. But seeing them, seeing you, it changed everything. I want to make amends. Not just financially, but truly. I want to be a father to them, if you'll let me. Amelia looked at him, truly looked at him, past the billionaire facade to the man who seemed genuinely broken by his past. The anger was still there, a dull ache, but it was now laced with a profound weariness. Could she trust him? Could she forgive him for the years of struggle, the solitary nights, the constant fear of not being enough for her children? The internal conflict raged. Her pride screamed no, her heart whispered of the pain he'd caused, but her practical mind, the one that worried about school tuition and medical bills, saw the undeniable benefit for her children. More than that, she saw the yearning in his eyes, a desperate hope for connection. A few weeks later, she allowed him to visit. Not at her apartment, but at a local park. The first meeting was awkward, punctuated by the children's curious stares and Ethan's clumsy attempts at interaction. He brought them toys, expensive ones, but it was Noah's quiet question about a book and Ethan's surprisingly knowledgeable answer that truly broke the ice. He wasn't just a checkbook. He was a person, capable of connection. Slowly, painstakingly, a fragile truce began to form. Ethan was consistent, showing up for scheduled visits, learning their routines, their quirks. He wasn't perfect, often overwhelmed by the chaos of 5 toddlers, but he tried. He saw the exhaustion in Amelia's eyes, the quiet strength that had carried her, and a new kind of admiration began to bloom. He started helping with more than just money, offering to drive them to appointments, staying late to help with homework, even enduring a tea party with Lily and Daisy. One evening, after putting the Quintuplets to bed in the spacious new home he'd provided, Amelia found Ethan sitting on the porch swing, staring at the stars. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "For everything." He turned, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. "I should be thanking you, Amelia, for giving me a second chance, for letting me be a part of their lives." He paused, then took a deep breath. "And for not giving up on me entirely." The air between them was thick with unspoken history, with the ghosts of what might have been and the fragile promise of what could still be. The betrayal still stung, a scar on her heart, but the years of resilience had also taught her the power of forgiveness, especially when it meant a better future for her children. She saw the man he was becoming, not just the boy who had run. I don't know what the future holds, Ethan," Amelia admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "There's still so much pain." He reached out, gently taking her hand. His touch was hesitant, respectful, a stark contrast to the passionate embraces of their past. "I know," he said, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "But maybe we can build something new. Together. Not just for them, but for us. If you're willing to try." The night was silent, save for the crickets and the distant hum of the city. Amelia looked at their intertwined hands, then up at the stars, a million possibilities twinkling above them. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope. The betrayed bride had found her strength, raised her miracles, and now, the ex-billionaire, humbled and changed, was reaching out. The question of whether he truly wanted her back, not just for the children, but for herself, hung in the air, a silent, powerful plea. And for the first time in 7 years, Amelia was finally ready to consider the answer. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel and enjoy these other amazing stories.